hearing that I was allowed to dream again opened my world back up. It ignited a spark of hope in me that I didn't have before. And honestly, it's that spark that I really want to help other women have.
Hey everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Entering Motherhood, a podcast dedicated specifically to new moms going through this amazing journey in life. I'm your host, Sarah Bilger, a postpartum nutritional coach / mechanical engineer. And as always, I'm so excited to be here with you and share all of the information I've been lucky enough to obtain since becoming a mom. In this episode, we talk with Angela Snyder about her personal journey and how impactful it has been for her to recognize that we need to find our spark again and trust in ourselves more as we enter motherhood. Hello and welcome to Entering Motherhood. I'm happy to have you here and to get started with our conversation today. So how about you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Awesome. Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Angela Snyder, and I am a self empowerment coach. I really help midlife moms get unstuck, find connection, and give themselves permission to step into this next level version of themselves. I'm a mom of three boys. 8, 5, and almost 3. My little guy will be 3 next week, which feels so crazy that my baby is turning 3. And I'm a former lawyer turned personal development junkie. Oh, and a podcast host. I have a podcast as well. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
So many things. So,
so many things.
yeah. So, with being an attorney and being a working mom, what was that like at first?
Oh my gosh, Sarah. I always joke that I had no idea what was coming to me. I have realized recently that the stories I grew up with, you have to become successful, right? Get the highest degree you can, be as successful as possible so that you can be safe and always able to take care of yourself. I didn't realize how that story really truly affected me until I became a mom. And when I became a mom, I was a working attorney, and having to juggle both of those roles was so hard for me. My first son was I'll call it medically complex. He had a lot of things going on. We were constantly in and out of doctor's office, specialist office, things like that. And it never felt good to me to leave him. I know we never feel great about leaving our kids anyway, but I think especially given all of the things that he was struggling with medically, it was I was very anxiety ridden, which now looking back could have been postpartum anxiety and whatnot, but I had no idea about that kind of thing. That language it wasn't in my wheelhouse, my toolbox. I didn't know. So I was really struggling trying to fit into my former life of being a highly productive, high functioning, independent woman attorney, and also being flung into this new role where I was so vulnerable. I had zero control over anything, right? I had no idea. Breastfeeding was a huge struggle for us. And it's hard because I felt so much pressure about things that were supposed to be naturally easy to me. I had done the things, gotten the accolades, and sort of, risen the ranks in my professional life. And now here I was, taking on this new role that was supposed to be so much more natural. And it was a struggle. But I thought it was a struggle because I was doing both. And I never felt like I was doing really good at either one. So eventually, when I had my second son, I was able to step away from my legal career. We were so fortunate. As a family, we decided we're going to do this, make certain sacrifices, and be able to just have me be home with the kids. While being a working mom presented certain challenges, being a stay at home mom presented a lot of challenges as well that I was so unprepared for, Sarah. I had no idea. I thought, okay, phew, I'm leaving behind all the stress of the workplace and filing deadlines and court appearances and all of that. I'm leaving that behind. All I have to do is focus on my family. It's going to be smooth sailing, easy peasy. My husband jokes that that year was like the domestication of Ange because I had no idea how to balance like a household. I had to obviously the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, not to mention caring for 2 babies. I was totally out of my comfort zone. And it came with so many additional challenges because, again, these are the things that society tells you you're supposed to be so good at. That's just what comes natural. You're a woman, you know how to do all these things. The household is your domain, all of those things. And I was really struggling. But I felt so alone. I felt like I didn't have anybody I could quote unquote complain to because I really needed to vent about my experience. But my working friends were not gonna be the place for that, right? Because they're working full-time jobs and raising their families. They don't wanna hear from their stay-at-home mom friend that she's struggling to do the dishes. Give me a break, right? They're meeting deadlines. Their boss is after them for certain things, like, they don't wanna hear about it. And so it caused me to really and my family, to be honest, my family, I don't think liked hearing that I was struggling at home because we were sacrificing for me to be there. So I don't think it made my husband feel very good either for me to complain about being home with the beautiful babies that we had created and when he has to go out to work all day, right? And we collectively made this decision and it just didn't feel good. So long story short, it caused me to go inward. And I took that struggle like on myself and I just didn't talk about it. And it was really really tough. So that is I can leave the story off there. I can, like, pick it up, of how that kind of it was then that I sort of got propelled into my personal development journey.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think there's so many people that do kind of have that shift of like you feel like you're out of control and you're not really sure what's happening like, being a working mom and thinking like I got this and like the only thing that I'm going to add into the equation are these kids and that's just not the case and you feel like you're juggling all of it and it's so interesting to hear you say like at that moment when you were like, I'm going to be a stay at home mom, like all the deadlines are gone, all these like corporate obligations are gone. All I have to do is take care of these kids. And like that, like all I have to do is like so much more than what we really know about and there's some moms that they're first they start to become a stay-at-home mom or maybe they wait until later and such but I think it's always kind of like there when you are a working mom. Like right now, I work full time. I think sometimes like, oh, like, wouldn't it be easier if I could just like not have all these obligations with work and I could just like only focus on this? But like then you put yourself in this other role and you don't have that daycare or nanny or something helping you're constantly on call you are the one providing for your kids. And I can totally imagine how you were saying you felt so alone because you don't want to go back to your working friends and be like, oh, this stay at home mom life, this is so tough. And yeah, like as somebody that works, I'd be like, all you have to do is stay at home. Like, you don't have to go to work anymore. Like, what are you talking about? So like it's hard and like you don't want to complain and you like you were saying with like your husband and your family and stuff like you sacrifice so much and you've gone through all of this to be able to have this opportunity you don't want to be like maybe this isn't what I was like thinking because you've already jumped in and you've already made that choice so like I can't relate but like I can sympathize with like how you feeling and why you resorted to kind of like going inward and just being like this is just me this is my struggle this is what I'm dealing with and nobody wants to hear about it so what really was that journey then from starting that going inward to where you are now and finding people that you could relate to or learn from.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, I love that question, and it's a big one. There's a lot to unpack, but first I wanna mention that I it also felt really isolating among the other stay-at-home moms. just felt like this, innate sense of not belonging, right? Because 'Cause I'm flung into the mothers groups, I signed up to do all the play dates, all those things, and I just felt like, and I think this is probably a theme in my life, just that everybody else is, like, doing better than I am. Like, I am struggling. Why am I struggling so hard when everybody else is rocking the casseroles every night? They have, like, their meal prep down and their meal planning, and they're doing all these things, and it's like I can barely keep my head above water. So it was very much an isolating experience for me. I was grateful to find, like, a really, really dear friend through that time period. But other than that, it was a very isolating experience. And I started like listening to a personal development book or something like that. And it was when I heard in that book the author give me, a stay-at-home mom, midlife stay-at-home mom, like she was speaking to me and said, "You have the ability to dream again. You have the ability to choose more for your life." And honestly, it was hearing those words, like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, "What? This doesn't have to be it?" And I have to tell you, I'm a dreamer by nature. I don't know where along the way I lost that spark. I lost my light. I became so consumed with like serving everyone else in my life and meeting the needs of my children and the house and all of that, that I forgot about me and like my heart and my soul as like a human, and all of the things that I had dreamt of doing with my life. I just sort of felt like they weren't going to happen anymore. I guess I had resigned to that. And it wasn't until I came across this personal development book and I was listening, because I can't read anything. Let's be honest. I go to sleep like the minute I open a book and I read a few words, I'm out like a light. So listening to books, audiobooks are my jam. I was listening and doing dishes and just hearing that I was allowed to dream again opened my world back up. It ignited a spark of hope in me that I didn't have before. And honestly, it's that spark that I really want to help other women have.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's amazing. And it's that giving permission. Like I think a lot of times, like you said, like who knows at what point it kind of just like shuts down and you're like, well, this is my life. Like this is what I'm doing. And this is just like the way it's gonna go. And we forget that like we have the ability to still change and we should be changing and we should be like growing and learning and everything like that. And like I think what hit me the most was like, wanting to teach my daughter certain things and like start thinking about like, well, what lessons do I want to show her, teach her, and explain to her? And I was like, why am I going to tell her that she can, always chase her dreams and do what she loves and dream and everything, and then I wasn't doing that for myself. Like I had completely just already like, this is my life, like I'm going to work until I retire, and like she goes to daycare and we have this routine and blah blah blah. Like I thought like this was life now. Like this was what motherhood was supposed to look like. And as I was kind of like, watching the Disney movies again or reading those like storybooks and everything, I was kind of like, wow, okay, wait, like if I want her to learn these things, I have to do these things for myself. And so, like, what do I want to do? What are my dreams? Like, what do I still want to think about or achieve in my life? Like, this can't be it. Like, this can't be, the end. It can't just be like, what I want Rosie to do and what I want her to grow up to be, and how she's going to be able to achieve all these things, and I'm going to obviously be there to support her, but like I have to still give myself that ability to be creative and explore and really just tap into all of that so that I can show her and demonstrate that to her more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think once that really hit me, I was like, okay, like what's going to happen? Like what does that mean? And it really sort of like gave me like a new life again to be like excited for what her life is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like you hit on a really important topic about modeling for our children, right? How we want like we can't just tell them we want you to dream big and chase your dreams, but then we're sitting in a box, right? We can't just like lecture them to do all these crazy things but never take any chances ourselves or never chase our own dreams. And it's like a good reminder that we are still a whole person just by ourselves. We are still a whole valid person, worthy of chasing their dreams, worthy of, being lit the heck up and in pursuit of something that excites us, right? Like we deserve that. And I think it's an important reminder and it's nice for our kids to see us like that. I think if you were to ask my oldest, like for his perception of me, like before I started this journey and now, I would really hope that he can detect the difference. They can see and feel like our energy is a powerful thing, and they for sure pick up on our energy. Even my littlest is so emotionally intelligent. He knows like the look on your face, like how you walk into a room, he can tell how you're feeling. Our children are such like intuitive beings just naturally, and they know, is mom happy? They can just tell. So I think it's so important for us to be modeling that. And another thing that you mentioned got me thinking about what we want to teach them. For me, this journey has also been about learning a lot of what I don't want to pass on to them, right? Like this self discovery journey for me has been a lot of uncovering stories and narratives that have sort of kept me small for lack of a better term, and things that I want to be extra sure not to pass on to them, which is why going through this like midlife enlightenment process is so powerful, because it gives us the opportunity to really be the change makers in our generational lineup. We have the opportunity to really make a strong pivot and be impactful for the kids. So that's exciting to me.
And now, so for you personally, what have you felt? Because I think a lot of the times, we hear these things, we see these things, and like you were even saying, like the moms with the casserole dishes and
Oh
have
yeah, yeah.
everything all together and like whatnot. So like you might see somebody that you want to, follow or do those things, and it looks very appealing, and you start making lists of how is this going to happen and what's going to go on. But then we kind of like hit that little dip in a way of saying, like, well, I tried and maybe that's just not for me, or like, I want to be happy or I want to be able to like chase my dreams, but it's just not realistic. Like, that's not me. Like, I think so many times, like, some moms will kind of see these things that they might want to happen, but then they just aren't, like taking steps or moving forward, or they're still like drowning in that overwhelm. So, where would you kind of help somebody that's just kind of like, well, that's nice and all, but that's not me. Like, that's not going to happen for me.
Absolutely. And I think this is a very pervasive feeling, especially for moms who, in general, I think feel pretty overwhelmed, right? There's a lot on their plates. They're juggling the kids and the home and work life, whatever. So it's hard to carve out time or to feel like you have the time to put in pursuit of what sometimes feels like a very luxurious, like end goal, right? It feels like, who am I to want more in that regard, right? Who am I to dream for this or whatever? And for the clients that I work with that have that type of view, a lot of times there's a lot of like limiting beliefs. There's a backstory there that we really need to work hard to uncover and to get through. First, we have to bust through those limiting beliefs so that we can implement more positive suggestions in your subconscious mind to help you really move forward. But I always tell my clients and the women that I speak to that they know intuitively, they know in their heart what's meant for them. If there is a dream on your mind that you just can't get rid of, if it's something that keeps coming back, it's because it is meant for you. And a lot of times it's hard for people to hear because they're like, oh no. And like, how would I possibly do that? But I'm telling you, when you close your eyes and you think about your highest self and what she's up to, the images that pop into your brain are not the same as the images that pop into anybody else's brain. And they are there for you for a reason. And so I would say, like, if it's something that you feel really connected to, and it's something that you feel like you could see yourself working hard towards, then let's make a plan. That's the easy part. I'm happy to work with you to help you make a plan and to help you bust through whatever limiting beliefs come up with you in your pursuit of that. Right. But a lot of times what happens is we get distracted by social media. We see other people, shiny object syndrome, right? We'll see people doing things. We're like, well, hey, that worked really well for her. I should give that a try. But that's not the same as connecting with your soul and your highest self and what she's up to. That's different. This is you like seeing what other people are doing and thinking, oh, that might be a good fit for me. And that's more along the lines of like comparisonitis a little bit. Like I mentioned, the shiny object syndrome. That's not necessarily meant for you just because you're scrolling social media and you see something that looks appealing. So, what I would recommend is really taking the time to get quiet with yourself and going inward and checking in on what does your intuition say. A lot of my clients, and I feel like females in general, struggle with giving themselves authority over their own lives. And I know it sounds crazy in 2021 to think that we might struggle with that, but it's because we've been conditioned with these stories through our family, through society, through everything that we're constantly looking outside of ourselves for validation, for permission, and we're just constantly thinking that other people know better than us. At least for me, this was something I really struggled with. And when I sat back and relaxed a minute and gave myself permission to just know that I knew what was best for me, to trust myself. This self trust theme is huge for women. I mean, when you think about it, now I'm getting crazy on you, but like when you think about it, even like Supreme Court cases tell us what to do with our bodies, right? So it's no wonder that we struggle to have trust for ourselves and for our own ideas and intuition. But I would recommend taking some time and getting quiet with yourself and building that muscle of connecting to your intuition because it is a muscle. It's not something that everybody is accustomed to doing, but when you practice getting quiet and you practice connecting in that space, it's only going to become easier and easier. And those answers will come to you clearer and clearer. And you'll be able to see, is this the right path for me? Is this, and sometimes you find when you're on your path towards something that feels like an aligned goal, it's no longer in alignment, right? You're like, oh, I thought I wanted this. But now that I'm here, I'm experiencing this resistance. And that's when we just take that opportunity to really feel through the resistance. Where is it coming from? Why are you experiencing that? And it's totally valid that it doesn't have to be for you. Just because you set out on a journey doesn't have to mean that that's your end goal. Like, I feel like this is another huge thing for me in my life, Sarah, is the power of the pivot, right? Like giving yourself permission to just trust that you know what's best for you. Like I started out as an attorney and going back to the law field, especially after all of this motherhood stuff, just didn't feel in alignment. But oh my goodness, all the stories I was telling myself, all the stories I heard from society, from my family, everything else was like, go back to the law practice. Go back. Are you crazy? Go make your money, go to the law practice. But it wasn't aligned with my heart anymore. And listening to that story and like listening to myself and having the courage to say, no, thank you. I'm gonna choose me here is a big deal. And I think that's a lesson that women need to learn and they need to hear more about, right? They need to see people doing that, hear more about it so that they feel more comfortable listening to their own intuition and having courage in those moments as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like you said, it is a muscle that we really have to like work on and form because it's something that, maybe a lot of us aren't used to using or being familiar with. And unless you know somebody, in your family that is kind of in that mindset and working along those same lines, you just have never been exposed to it. And so like it might seem hard and difficult at first, but it does get easier the more we kind of like tap into that and say like, what do I want, what do I feel is right, and not letting those kind of like external factors really decide on what's going on for us. And I think especially in those like early months postpartum, you do have those feelings instinctively, and maybe not all the time, it's not going to come natural, things like that, but you can say like, what do I want for my baby, like what do I feel is best for them. So like knowing what you know now, how do you feel like that could have helped you in very early motherhood, like initial postpartum period, and what that transition would have been like?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question because had I been even half as empowered as I feel now, I think I would have had, especially for my first son, I would have had so much more. I don't want to say control, but I would have felt so much more at ease making decisions, especially where it came to his medical stuff. I struggled so hard with breastfeeding. I mean, like, I could not make an ounce of milk for the life of me. And I felt like the biggest failure. Everywhere I looked, people were overproducing. Of course, that's what I was focusing on, but everybody was overproducing so much milk everywhere. And I was like eating so many lactation cookies. I was using oils. I mean, I did everything I could to increase my milk supply, and I just couldn't. And I think if I had just taken a step back and listened to my body and what my body was trying to tell me, my intuition in that moment, I could have made like better decisions for us. I probably could have switched to formula easier. I could have given myself an easier time with that. He had a lot of other medical issues. I remember going to these doctor's appointments and just being like as wide eyed as possible with so many questions and just waiting for them to give me answers. And they didn't have any. And I felt so not empowered. I felt such a lack of knowledge. I felt unable to make decisions on my own. I was constantly waiting for these other experts to just tell me what I need to do to help my child be healthy. And I had zero connection to my intuition and to myself. And I feel like our bodily connection with our children is actually very strong. And had I allowed myself to listen to that a little bit more, I just think I could have had a little bit easier of a time. And honestly, the lesson of not looking outwards for validation and for external like help getting places and stuff, like knowing where I'm going. It's a lesson that I have to keep learning. It's something that I have to keep practicing, like going inwards and connecting to that intuition because it's easy to get very caught up in, well, they said you have to do this, so that's what I'm going to do. It's really easy to forget to connect to yourself first and see if that feels good. So I think my early days of motherhood would have been so much easier. Maybe not easier like the day-to-day stuff, but I could have felt more at ease about the situations had I had a stronger connection to my intuition.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's so important to kind of, acknowledge and notice and really just, like you were saying, like everyone is doing this, or like everybody's like this and that and that and that. Like if you feel like you're the only one like struggling with something, of course like it's going to look like everybody's got it all together. Everybody can produce like breast milk, like everybody is overproducing. Like, I was seeing people that, had huge freezer stashes and everything, and I was like, I'm just making enough for my baby on like a day-to-day basis. I was like, how in the world are these people like overproducers, and like where is all that milk coming from? Like it like blew my mind. But then I was like, you know what, I am making enough for my baby, and that's all I need. Like that's all I wanted. Like I didn't need like a huge freezer stash and things like that. And I think, like you were saying, like we put all of this kind of like pressure on ourselves that really doesn't need to be there. And if we really just take the time to, focus and say, like, what does my family need? What does my baby need? Like, what is our current situation? And like, what's going on here? I think, that does relieve a lot of that stress and pressure. And even, how you were saying too, like, they say this and they say that, like, there's always going to be like, this is what you need to do, and this is the best way for this, and that's the best way for that, and you need to eat like this or eat like that or do these exercises or this and that. And it's like, if it doesn't feel right for you though, don't do it. And that's okay. And I think a lot of the times that's what is important. And like you said, like, if you're not feeling empowered to trust yourself and your own intuition with those things, it's very challenging. It's very hard because you're trying to do everything that these people say on top of everything that this person says. And you are going to the doctor or your provider or, aunts, uncles, family, whatever. And you're like, how do I do this? Like, how do I do that? And we're relying on all these other people to give us the answers when most of the time you do know what the answer is. And I think it's just learning to, yeah, trust yourself and trust your own opinion. And we have lived this life for a decent amount of time before we have children. And so, like, we've had our own experiences, we've been through our own life events. And I think, if you want to know an answer, sometimes it is more beneficial to really take that time to dig into it yourself and figure out, what you want, not what they say or what everybody is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I try now to check in with myself regularly and say, okay, Ange, like, especially, when I can see that it's coming up the most for me is when I'm constantly like I'm looking for outside advice. I'm like, there's a decision I have to make or something, and I'm asking my husband, my friend, my mom, all these people. And that's my trigger for myself. I'm like, wait a second, back up, step back and ask myself, okay, if this had to be resolved anyway, what would my preference be? And I just asked myself, and one thing I learned through my training is to go with the quickest answer that comes to you. So your subconscious mind knows the answer always for you, like the best answer for you always. So when you ask yourself a question and the first thing that pops in your brain, that's the way you want to go. It takes 3 seconds for your conscious mind to catch up. And then your conscious mind's going to come in and start telling you why that first answer is wrong and you should be doing it a different way. Or what if that doesn't work? And all the what ifs, the buts, all of that stuff. That's going to come 3 seconds later. So take that first answer and run with it, or at least write it down so you don't forget, and really think about that. I've started that practice with myself, and I'm grateful that I can now see when my old habits are beginning to creep in, and I can reel it back a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely a practice to begin to get more in touch with yourself.
I think like that is such a like unique spin on trying to like tap into your intuition and everything and really just like, okay, it's like that rapid response, like,
Yes,
go.
totally.
And
It
really just
totally
kind of,
is.
yeah, and like playing that for a little bit and just like quick answers and stuff, it really helps like shed light on what is just coming up for you. And even if like, you don't have to like act on everything that comes up or you say or whatever, but it kind of is like, wow, is that really what I'm thinking? Like, is that what I feel like the right answer is or the right direction to go? And then yeah, you can let your mind kind of like catch up and give you all those excuses or reasons not to and things like that. And it's like, but well, why did I think of that initially though? So I think that's like a fun little exercise to try to just like quick rapid response.
Yeah, it totally is. And then the questions that you begin to ask yourself about that, like, or the excuses you make up, like, oh, I don't really have the time for that. Those are the places that you want to dig into and say, well, where is that coming from? And a lot of times those are things that are there to just keep us safe. So that's our excuses coming up, our safety measures, all those things. And you really want to dig into, like, where did this belief come from? And is it true? It may have been true when you learned it. Is it still true for you? And that's fine if it is, but it's good to just know, like, where are these like core beliefs coming from and how are they still serving me today? And I do this a lot with my clients. Like, it's okay for you to shed stories and shed beliefs that are no longer serving you. It doesn't mean they never did. It could have been super good for you while you were little. But now, leading the kind of life that you want to lead, it's okay for you to leave that behind and step into the next level version of yourself. So we do a lot of work with like hypnotherapy and stuff to leave those limiting beliefs behind.
And so now your oldest is 8, correct?
Yes. Oh.
So as us, new mamas, my daughter is almost 2. She'll be 2
Aw.
very, very soon. What kind of, I guess, like, advice would you really like to just end on and give to us as fresh new mamas entering motherhood and really just exploring this all for the first time?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's such a ride. It's such an exciting ride. And I'll say that, each age comes with its own issues, its own like, you're right now, I can only imagine like the stage that you guys are in. My youngest is 2. He's about to be 3 next week, which is so exciting, but also so sad. I can't believe my youngest baby is 3. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. Like, how do we deal with like being done, Like, oh, before at least my babies, I always was like, okay, I'm gonna have another one. I'm gonna have, and now it's like, oh no, this is the last baby. But so you always have like different stages to work through and whatnot. But with my 8-year-old, it's really neat. He's getting to a point where like, not getting to a point where he's fun to be around because they're always fun to be around, but like he is, we have real conversations. He's reading books and we're talking about things. He's really interested in history and things like that. It's interesting to see like his personality really coming out and like a really neat way. So it's a really cool stage with doing all of my work with the subconscious mind and understanding how important the ages of 0 to 7 are for his learning and perception of the world. I would just say to like it's so important for us moms to be doing this work so we're aware of what we're like passing on and to just give them as much freedom to be who they truly are as you can, as encouraging as you can be for them to explore the things that light them up. That would be my biggest tip or like my biggest advice because it's such an important time for them to explore those things and to have the freedom to do what it is that makes them feel so excited and it could be any number of things for the little kids, but it's so nice for them to have that foundation where they were encouraged and supported to follow their dreams as young children so that they can call on that again in their adulthood.
Yeah, and I really think, it is a lot of stuff that we have to do as ourselves, and it almost is, like going back to our own childhood sometimes and seeing, like, what we don't want and what we do want for them, and realizing like, whoa, like this is what happened for me, and like that's why I want to be able to either do things differently or take parts of, our childhood the same, and really just, yeah, overall empower them and show them that they are allowed to be who they want to be, and back to, again, modeling and really just saying, like, if we're doing that for ourselves, it's going to be that much easier to give them that permission.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if anything, motherhood has been a really like I don't wanna say triggering for me because I feel like that word is pretty heavy, but, like, it has really flung me, like, headfirst into the limiting beliefs and negative stories that I was taught as a child, by no fault of my, caregivers because they did the best they could with what they had, and it wasn't like a, you know, wasn't a hor I had a wonderful childhood. But we're all taught different stories, and it's really interesting, I think, as we become moms and step into this new role in motherhood, those stories come like kind of front and center again. Whereas before you're like an independent, like successful woman, you're doing your thing, you only have to worry about yourself. Now all of a sudden you're flung into this situation where you're a new mom and it just happens that you get flooded with like, these ideas that you were raised with, and so it's just important for you to like take inventory of that and see if it's still like serving you and still, how you want to move forward, if it's still part of that narrative. But yeah, it's so exciting, and I would say the other thing is just have so much fun with them. I know it's like you hear that all the time, but, like, it is such a special fleeting time, so as much as you can get down there and have so much, like, fun, intentional fun with them is, like, that's gonna be so special and memorable for them and you as well.
I agree. But, thank you so much for like coming on and talking to us and really just like sharing, what you have learned and really stepping into like be such an empowered mom. So, I thank you so much for doing this today. And I'd really like to, give you the opportunity to, let us know what you're up to, what you're doing, how we can reach you, everything like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure. I hope that some of your listeners will be encouraged by some of the stuff I shared. I hope that it was helpful for someone out there. It was really great. So I really appreciate you giving me space on your platform to share. You can find me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active with my coaching business at the.ange Snyder. So it's the.ange Snyder, Snyder. And I have a podcast. It's called Gateway to Growth, where we talk about all of this like personal development stuff with motherhood and how that all fits together. And I'm working on something really exciting. I'm getting ready to launch a membership, which is really meant to be a place for deep connection for midlife moms to come together, do this growth work, and really support, encourage, and empower one another along the way. And I'm just really excited for that to be a beautiful container of growth and connection. So I really hope that some of you will join me there, but I will share all about that on my Instagram and on my podcast for sure. So it was such a pleasure to be here, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Well, this wraps up yet another episode of Entering Motherhood. I hope that you have found this episode helpful, and if you liked it, please share it with others who might also benefit from this information. If there's anything that you'd like to know more about, or maybe you know someone who'd like to be on the show, please visit my website, enteringmotherhood.com. I'm so thrilled to be going on this journey with you and getting the amazing opportunity to help moms during this postpartum experience. You can also now find us on Instagram and Facebook at Entering Motherhood.